welcome to DNA Talk Podcast. I just wanted to thank you guys for coming in and tuning in with us. Today we have an amazing guest, Adrian Montoya. I reached out to him. It was simple conversation over the gram, and you know I saw the stuff that you were doing, and I just the people need to hear about what it is you're doing, and then also your story as well. I know it was really brief, but we just want to welcome you to DNA Talk Podcast. On top of that, check us on Spotify, YouTube, all those platforms. You can find us there. But Adrian, let's just jump right into it, man. Let's talk a little bit about what it is you're involved in, who you are, and what you do.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys having me today. My name's Adrian Montoya. I'm originally from San Antonio, Texas, born and raised. I have lived in Austin for the past 6 years, and just recently moved back to San Antonio.
Okay.
And I'll jump into that a little bit with my business. But I co-founded Summit 11 in 2019, and right at the beginning of COVID, and also founder of Eastside Paddle Club as well. Just turned 30 years old, so I'm getting up there, man.
That's right,
and looking forward to having this conversation with you guys and being on this podcast.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, I want to talk a little bit more just about Summit 11, just because a lot of people know you for Eastside Paddle Club, right here in the Austin area.
Absolutely.
And we'll get into that a little bit just in the beginning briefly. But tell me a little bit more about that company.
Yeah, Summit 11. So Summit 11 is a company that I co-founded in 2019, like I mentioned. Before that, I worked at a company called Zengistics, and it's a transportation logistics company. Both of them are. And so, learned the roots and learned how to what the logistics industry entails. Started that in 2016, right out of college. And so it was a startup out of Silicon Valley, and learned from some guys who were tremendously, good at their craft, and guys who are just, their skill levels, the mindset that they had was incredible. And so from the jump, it gave me just a huge almost advantage in my career to learn from guys like that from 2016 to 2019, where I then realized I'm all right, I want to start my own company. I think I've learned so much in a matter of 3 years that I would love to kind of do this on myself and by myself with some partners and write our own story.
For sure.
So we founded Summit 11 in the beginning of 2020, actually, end of 2019, right at the beginning of COVID. And it was an interesting time, obviously, as everybody was
sure, dude.
It was work from home.
Yeah,
and
I can't imagine.
Yeah, it was crazy. We were working in a WeWork. We were the only company in there.
Yeah.
And
they're out of business now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So we got a really good deal on rent, and we're okay, everything's kind of falling in our favor, being the only company in that WeWork. And so there was 4 of us, and we just started out with $0 in revenue. Okay. Nothing but $1 in a dream is what we usually say. And in a matter of 1 year, we grew to 30 employees and $30 million in revenue. So it was a really big, good first year. And I think maybe it was the timing, the timing during COVID and during all that. I feel like a lot of people working from home it was a new thing for them.
Yeah.
And so us putting our head down and being in an office, I think it gave us an advantage.
That's awesome, dude. And I mean, like you said, it could be timing as well. But I'm really excited to dive in a little bit about what brought you to that timing, right?
Yeah.
What was that decision that made you take that jump at that time? And we'll get into a little bit more. But Eastside Paddle Club, tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing now and some of the things you guys got coming up.
Absolutely, yeah. So Eastside Paddle Club, we were about 3 months in from launch. We launched it in November, the beginning of November, and it's a social club. It's based around pickleball, but what we're trying to build is a community, right? A micro community that brings people together. We want to build community, build connections, socialize, and at the same time, it's a healthy lifestyle sport. And so the people that the members that we have now in our facility, we're up to 285 members, which is, for us, that's something that we didn't think would happen for months to come.
Yeah.
The fact that it happened in 3 months, we're super grateful, super blessed
awesome.
to have a lot of those members walk in those doors. I've met so many great people from all walks of life, all across the U.S., different trades. And that's why I'm so excited to get back to Austin, because I want to dive in and get to better these connections with some of these members we have in our facility. And it's we've been very accepted by the east side of Austin. It's a community within itself. That's amazing. And we're still in the building phase, which is crazy. It's been it's been a lot harder than we thought it was going to
For
be.
sure, yeah.
You
I
know?
remember. I think I met you for the first time
Yeah.
at the club, and it was a beautiful complex you guys had, right? Of course, you being the founder, we were kicking things, and you were like, "Yeah, no, like that could be a little bit better, right? We
Yeah.
got to paint here, this, and that."
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful, like world class facility you guys got going. You guys
Thank
got
you.
a perfect spot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was a concept me and my co-founder and partner Turab thought about. Right, it was a concept that wasn't a thing yet that was in the industry. Right, pickleball is a sport that's super fun to play. It's addicting.
Yeah.
At the same time, I've always been intrigued and interested in like building connections and socializing and building communities, right, and that are for the good.
Yeah.
And so he has a background in like nightlife and stuff like
Okay.
that and hospitality.
Very nice.
And so we're like, okay, how can we bring both of what we enjoy together? And so with Eastside, we were able to create a concept that we didn't know was going to work. It's kind of like, you know, you have pickleball, you have a co-working space, you have a bar. We want to host community events and charity stuff like that. And so it's like, man, are we trying to do too much of everything? You know what I mean? But we've somehow, and we're still figuring it out, but we've somehow put it together, and it's looking pretty good, man. I'm excited.
That's awesome, dude. And like you said, like it's the community aspect. I don't think, and also like the addictiveness of pickleball.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people realize what Austin is. It's like the mecca for things like that, right?
It is.
It's like keep Austin weird.
Yeah.
Like what was pickleball before? Like football, baseball, all of those things. Pickleball was like nowhere. I didn't even know what it was growing up.
Right.
You know,
Me either.
up until
Yeah.
recently, where it's like, oh wow, now I figure out what pickleball is, and I'm in Austin, Texas, and everybody's playing. So it's a super, great concept that you guys have, and also just building off of the game of pickleball, which is super cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But so, like I said, man, that's just the bare minimum, right?
Right.
A lot of people know Adrian off the gram, off of just even relationships that you've connected with at Eastside Paddle Club as this.
Yeah.
But the whole goal of what we want to do is to really share your story, and the goal is to speak on it enough for the people that are going to be watching to really understand, like, hey, how did he get from here to here?
Yeah.
What was in the middle? What was in the beginning? What was it that actually gave him the will and the vision to be able to do stuff like that? And if they can pull anything from it, that's the goal of today. So hopefully when we're done here, and the next time somebody sees you at Eastside Paddle Club, they can be like, Adrian, man, like this meant a lot to me. This was great. I didn't know this about you.
Yeah.
So even the people that you don't know and the people that you do know, hopefully, you can touch them in their lives a little bit more than you have already. So let's start at the beginning. So I know you said you were from San Antonio, Texas. Your parents, where are they from? Are they from the States?
So I'm actually, my dad was born in Monterrey, Mexico.
Okay.
My mom is from San Antonio, Texas.
Very nice.
So first generation, first generation child, and older brother of, I have a younger sister as well. And so, the background of my family, my dad came to the States, as an immigrant, and he built a lot of my my background is like comes from that side of what the story he told me as a kid, right?
Let's hear that story.
Yeah.
That's what I want. That's what I want to hear. That's where it begins, right?
That's where,
because you're not here without that story,
right?
So
exactly.
let's dive into a little bit more of that.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's what motivates me a lot. He came in as an immigrant into the U.S. and grew up in like a really, really poor family, where just trying to, not knowing English, trying to get by, being in San Antonio. Obviously, San Antonio is a really big immigrant city. So he lived he actually grew up in Minnesota.
Okay.
So a little bit about that is he used to work in the fields picking like fruit and stuff like that. So they follow the seasonalities across the U.S. Minnesota has a lot of fruits and vegetables where they farm and stuff like that. So he grew up picking fruit like that, went to high school, went into the Marines. And from there, like hearing how he went from like this immigrant to this, growing up very poor, going into the Marines and building a lifestyle for himself where he became a craft. He built a craft that became an electrician. And to raising us the way that he raised us, you know what I mean? And so he gave me a sense of like anything you want to do, you can do, right? Don't ever let anybody tell you no. And so that's kind of what I hold with me, for today and everything that I do.
That's awesome, man. It's crazy how how relatable those stories are for a lot of people, that look like you and me.
Yep.
I hear that story, and it's like it's a completely different story, and it's uniquely yours and your dad's.
Right.
But my brother and I, we share a similar story, right?
Absolutely,
Our
yeah.
dad's from Michoacan, Morelia.
Yeah, yeah.
And I recently saw a picture, that I cherish, that he shared with us, of like my mamita, my grandma, and her brothers, and the cousins, and everybody working the farm, like, out there. And that's kind of what I've envisioned
Really well, yeah.
that's what I envisioned, is when you said your dad's out there in Minnesota, and kind of following the seasonality of,
Right.
That where work goes, that's where we go.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, we're in a day and age where, work is kind of optional in a sense, right? Or it's there if we want it, and we can kind of leave it if we don't. But it's like having that background and knowing, like, hey, we follow work. That's where we go, right? And whether it is working for a corporate company, like you said, working for that company that you were working out in Silicon Valley, or now doing your own thing,
Right.
like, it's crazy how that connection is. It's like,
It is,
you're finding that work. So
I think,
go ahead.
Just to tell off of that, I think it's like it's a benefit that, like, we have that background. You know what I mean? I've
sure.
always told my fiance, and she says, like, I kind of overwork myself and all this stuff. I'm like, man, this is what I was born to do. You know what I mean? I was born to work hard, and always raised to work hard for what you want, and stuff like that. A little bit different in today's age from a cultural standpoint. I feel like, a lot of different things going on in society, but from an old school standpoint, I kind of like to keep things a little bit old school, just from my mentality when it comes to, like, work.
Yeah.
Being a servant leader is kind of what I like to do.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I love that you use that word, and I want to touch on that here in a sec. But was there something that your dad did for you? Maybe looking back now, right? It's like he did it for you, but maybe something you didn't necessarily agree with, or weren't too happy to be doing, that kind of instilled that work ethic in you as a kid.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's funny. I think about that now as a father myself. Just like being out and, like, helping fix the cars, right?
Yep.
Getting the tools and stuff like that. Yeah, I think a lot of, like, us, guys that look like me and you had to do that, right? We're our old man's outside fixing the cars and stuff, and we're there trying to pick the right tool.
For us, it was the weeds. It was the weeds.
Saturday
morning, no friends were out. Like, friends would ride the bike down the street.
Yeah.
And we're on our hands and knees, like, no gloves, just picking the weeds out of there. And
that's awesome.
I mean, we didn't have this big, phenomenal, like, beautiful house, right? We had a home, which was great, and it was good to us. But man, like, it mattered.
Right.
It mattered that those weeds were taken out.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, like, things like that, like you mentioned, picking the weeds, pulling tools, and I mean, smashing cans, selling aluminum, things of that sort. Like I mentioned, my dad was an electrician, so there was always something with, like, aluminum being around, or copper, right? And from job sites, and me having to go and with him and cut that copper and fold it up and go and recycle it to get, like, money that I would then keep. That was me earning my money from him. And so
earning my way through.
Yeah. And so it was, at 16 years old, I got my first job, and he told me that was, he's like, that's nothing, 16 years old. Like, I started working at, like, 12, you know? And so, like, as kids, your parents and like, they're always like, oh, I had it harder than you, which, now that when I think back at it as a grown man, I'm like, man, they did have it harder than us, And so, no, I appreciate everything he instilled in us. He was a man of God as well, and so he, at an early age, we learned, following Christ, reading the Bible, putting all our faith into Jesus Christ as well, and I feel like that has led me in my career and in my, personal life and everything. It's like my foundation.
Yeah.
So following that has helped me just from, like, managing risk, right? Managing risk and managing stress with owning companies, knowing that I have that background and put all my faith in God that he will steer me in the right way.
That's
right?
awesome.
So,
dude. That's awesome. And just to touch on that, just that a little relation. Prior to this, we had a prayer session, right, where it was just like, let's let God talk through us, and that's what we want to do. We want to convey that through us, whether we speak His name or not. Like, just by me sitting here talking to you, being intrigued in who you are as a person, like a child of God. That's what I want to know, and that's what I want the people to see as well, which is super great that you had that foundation. So did you guys, your mom, let's talk about your mom a little bit. Her being from San Antonio. My mom
Yeah.
was from Chicago.
Okay.
So my dad's from Mexico. My mom's from Chicago.
Nice.
So very similar in that
Yeah, yeah.
retrospect. How big was your Hispanic culture like in the house growing up?
It was big.
Yeah.
My mom comes from a big family in San
Okay.
Antonio. Yeah, and that's one thing I'm super grateful for. I enjoy because her grandma had 12 children.
Oh man,
You know
that's
what I mean?
awesome.
And so I have a
That
lot
sounds
of
similar to us, dude.
Yeah, similar.
Nine brothers and sisters on my dad's side,
Yeah.
seven brothers and sisters on my mom's.
Wow.
Yeah, we got like 40 plus cousins. It's crazy. But continue, my
that's
bad.
that's how I am too. So like being in San Antonio, like I feel like my mom just hanging out with her. She's like, "Oh, your cousin." I'm like, "Which one?" You know, I have so many of them. But the family get-togethers and everything like that growing up were amazing. I'm still very close to like everybody on my mom's side. My dad comes from a very small family.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, when they came to the States, it was just him and two sisters and a brother, and so very, very small. Everybody's now scattered across the U.S. But from my mom's side, like I mentioned, the 12 children. That means you have a lot of cousins, a lot of aunts, a lot of uncles. And so, and they all live in San Antonio.
Okay.
And so
That's awesome.
I feel like anywhere I went growing up in elementary, middle school, high school, people I didn't even know. My mom's like, "That's your cousin. What do you mean?" Like, you know, and
I know, dude. That still happens.
Yeah.
Like you got a cousin out in Mexico. I'm like, bro, like I haven't been to Mexico in like a few years. Like
Right.
what?
Same, man. So it was great. It's, I try to stay close with them. Completely different, like, I guess, lifestyles. I feel like they support me in everything, but they're old school, right?
That's right.
But the one thing I like love about that side of the family is like family.
Yeah.
Family's huge. I mean, they still have their get together. There's a matriarch of the family, like my great aunt, right? She's like the oldest, so that she's considered the matriarch, and so everything kind of revolves around her when it comes to like birthday parties for kids, stuff like that.
Yep.
It's always at her house.
That's awesome.
And so I think that's super cool, you know, because everybody kind of still gathers in one place. And it's what made me excited to move back to San Antonio.
Yeah.
Even if it was only for a year.
Yeah.
I was able to go back to
Those
like,
roots.
that route, yeah. So like a slower lifestyle from Austin and San Marcos, from where I spent the past, couple years, 10 years at, going. And so coming back to San Antonio and having that slower lifestyle, being around family and just kind of, I guess, taking a break from the fast life of Austin and trying to grow businesses was really good. It was good for mental, for my family, for everybody to see my son. People used to see him on Facebook, and now they're able to like see them in person. And he loves it. He's super close to my mom. So
that's so cool. I can't seeing you sitting here, be a father, stuff like that, talking about your family. Those are the things I can't wait to have. Right? Like I have a beautiful wife in Peyton who's here today helping us out behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But I can't wait to have my own child. Right.
Yeah.
And it's crazy just to touch on a little subject that we talked about. It's like you have all this time. Like something I'm seeing in you is that we're talking about time, right? From your dad's story all the way to where you are now. And, the past 10 years you spent in San Marcos, and you said getting away from that fast lifestyle and just slowing it down a little bit. My wife and I, we had a date night the other night, and we were talking about, how we are living exactly what we prayed for.
Yeah.
Like in this moment right now, we are living exactly what we prayed for. All we ever wanted to do was be together. When we were doing long distance, we got together. All we ever wanted to do was get engaged, right? And then we got engaged. All we wanted to do was be married. Yeah. Got married. We're waiting for us to move into our own place now. And it's like, oh man, all we want to do is move into our own place. But it's like in between, it's like it's never enough, right? Because you're always looking for that next thing.
Right.
So it's like so great when you can sit in that spot and know that like, hey, I got everything I need right now.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to be happy when, or I'm not going to be happy if. When this happens or if that happens, like I'm gonna be happy right now and grateful. Absolutely. Because like I feel, and I that's what I sense that you got. Yeah. From your time in San Antonio, spending that time with the family.
Absolutely, man. That's awesome. That's a great that experience alone in itself, when you and your wife are on that same page, where you realize that like, hey, everything we wanted and prayed for, we now have. Yeah. Because we do sometimes forget that we have that, right? We forget that we have everything we have prayed for.
Yeah. And it's like you look back now, right? It's like, and it's not just like, okay, now we can be happy. Yeah. Right. It's like, man, you look back and you're like, wow, I spent a lot of time worrying about things that I probably shouldn't have worried about. Yeah. I lost a lot of time there. So it's like a reflection process. Like, okay, now we're done. Now we're happy because now we want to have a kid, right? Like we want to have babies. Like I want a little mini me walking around. I want a little mini of my wife walking around, right?
Yeah.
So like
Absolutely.
that's what I want, but I know that I can be fruitful and grateful in this moment.
Right.
And now looking back at that time, you know, you're still young and
Yeah.
you know, you want things quick, you want them now, but it's just like, you know, surrounding myself with people that are like-minded and people that are in your shoes and people that are, you know, that are older than me, and, you know, being able to do that and see that through like just relationships have just been super amazing.
Absolutely. No, and you hit it on the nail. That's one thing I have practiced a lot being in San Antonio, and I think it's because I got to slow down a little bit, because the one thing I have realized is I do struggle with like gratitude a little bit, where I'm like always like, okay, like I want more, and then I get in and I'm like, all right, no, it's not good enough. I want more. I want this. And I used to always say like, I know where I want to go and I want to get there fast, and that was like maybe not the best approach sometimes. You know, I think when you start a business, you got to have that mentality. Every day is like the biggest muscle you can train is like urgency.
Yep.
When you're in a startup.
I like that.
But you know, having gratitude and slowing down was like the best thing that I could practice this past year.
Yeah.
Being in San Antonio. And one thing I used to like practice that was like Alex Ramosi has this framework of like the grandfather.
Yep.
And so it's like, what would your 85-year-old self looking back at you right now, being 30 years old, like you would be very grateful, right? Like if I was 85 and I'm like, man, looking back at my 30-year-old self, I wish I would have like soaking that in, you know, and my kid's 2 years old running around, and me and my wife are 30 years old. We're so young. There's no joint aches yet or anything. You know, we're able to work out. We're healthy.
For sure.
And so that has completely changed my mindset.
I like that.
You know, and so because, yeah, I was like you mentioned, you always want the next thing, and you forget that you have everything you prayed for originally. Yep. And so that's how I live like my life now. And
that's
it's
awesome.
something I continue to practice every day.
And I think it's like super important to like, so we touched on the importance of slowing down and the importance of why we slow down, right? And being practicing gratitude.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it takes away from the work ethic.
Right.
That doesn't mean that like you work less. It doesn't mean that you don't try to strive for more, because that striving for more is what's gonna provide provision for you and your family.
Right.
So like that's what you want. So it's just to be clear, it's like it doesn't mean stop what you're doing and kind of put everything down. It's just find that gratefulness and gratitude in between those moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it is just yourself, you are like single, or if you do have a partner, right? Like finding that time with each other or yourself is like imperative be able to keep taking those steps.
Absolutely. No, absolutely is. Yeah, I know. And that's something like, I mean, we're so young. And so like as a kid in college and stuff, I was like always looking forward towards the future.
Yeah.
And so like now when I look back at it, I'm like, man, like college was so fun. I wish I would have like soaked it in, you know, and it was great. I mean, I had a great experience in my young professional life and college and all that. But I did fail to like soak in the moment and live in like that time capsule of now.
Yeah.
You know, so
that's awesome, man. So let's get back to you being young, right? Like baby Adrian, like elementary school Adrian.
That's what they call me, baby.
Yeah, is that really?
I'm actually like a junior, so like that's
okay.
know, my dad's
baby Adrian.
Big Adrian. I'm little
All right,
Adrian.
Awesome. I promise I won't call you that in front of like our the members of Eastside Paddle Club.
It's still on Facebook. Like it's so funny when I look when I post a picture on Facebook or something of like me and my family, and there's still like a lot of family members and even like neighbors that I have on Facebook, and they're like, "Oh, baby A, you look so grown up now."
Oh,
you know?
dude, that's
it's
awesome.
so funny. I'm like, oh man.
So getting back to baby Adrian, and you said you have a younger sister, right?
Yeah.
So what was that? What was the household? What did the household look like? I know all of us don't come from very functional households, or or very high functioning, or some of us come from very low functioning households. Yeah. Was there like the warmth in there? Tell me a little bit about more what your home was like, and then also what your relationship with your sister was like growing up.
Absolutely. No, I came from a great home. My parents, I mean, they from the beginning, they showed us like what it like being a good husband and wife was, and my parents loved each other and they loved on us like crazy. They were very strict on us, which I'm super grateful for and appreciative of my mom to this day. And I always talk to her about it because it's funny. I have my little one running around and she babies him like no other. And I'm like, man, you didn't do that to me. You weren't like, you were so hard on me. And they were like, I growing up, I didn't want to play sports. I was always like scared to play like even football, like to join tackle football at like 7 years old. I was like, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? And so my mom pushing me to do that and kind of forcing me to do it. Basically, I'm like, man, I'm glad you did that because I played all the way through high school and I love the game. And I feel like, it made me who I am, having that like discipline from an early age on, you know, and doing something good. Right. And not just kind of, you know, I feel like sports is just it's needed sometimes.
Oh, dude,
you know? Good foundation for kids.
That's awesome. And like you said, like we just talked a little bit prior to off camera, like sports is what gets those kids. Like we're talking about baby Adrian, right? Like that's where you're gonna find that strength. Like, that's where sports are like such a catalyst, I believe. Yeah. And I'm coming from like, you know, a college athlete and like sports my whole life. Of course, that's gonna be like what the driving factor is, but like you can change your circumstances, right? Not saying you got to make it to the league or anything like that, but you can change your attitude. You can change your outlook. Absolutely. It's a great way to go ahead and do that.
It does, yeah. No, definitely. It like you mentioned, it creates a good, I guess, mental capacity of like if you like overcoming, you know, failures, right, with sports. If you don't start because you're like on the B team or you're backup, like, I don't know, like little things like that force you to, at a young age, learn how to be resilient and work towards what you want. 100%. But yeah, like my parents pushed me to be like good in sports, and we, you know, we played basketball, football. My sister played football.
Nice,
you know, and she was actually really good. And you know, like doing things like that and forcing us to get out of our comfort zone was huge, you know, and playing basketball and traveling across the U.S. My parents did all of that and spent a lot of time doing that. And so awesome. It was great. Me and my sister, like any brother and sister, we fought a lot, you know, and it's funny because she's like, as a kid, and probably till today, she was like tougher than me. You know what I mean? Like I was like,
I mean, she played football. I was like, dude, I just envisioned her like with the hair coming out.
Yeah. Like, I'm not ashamed to say that. I feel like I'm like, you know, but no, she was like, you know, just even from like going and turning off the light and like, cause it was dark in the house, like, you know, she was the one that would do it. She's like, I'll go do it. You know, like us as kids, and we grew up in the same, you know, we were very close. We grew up in the same room. You know, we shared a room. We had beds and stuff like that, and bunk beds, and so we were super close. And we're only 3 years apart. Okay. And you know, whenever I moved to college and she was in high school, we kind of grew apart a little bit. Okay. But now that I'm older and you know, I think what brought us together as well as my dad passing away and us realizing like, okay, like, we have each other, right? We have each other. We can lean on each other for whatever we need. And she's a great aunt now that I have my son, and she sees a lot of me in him and herself in him. And it's fun, you know, it's crazy how something, and sometimes like that, how it happens when something so drastic brings you back together from, you know, a death in the family or just having a newborn baby.
Yeah,
you know?
no, for sure. And obviously, you know, I know that we touched on that a little bit in the past. I would love to dive into it if you're open to it. Yeah. When did your dad pass?
My dad passed in December 26th of 2021.
2021. So
actually, I'm sorry, 2020.
2020. Yeah. So right around.
Right when we had started my company. Yeah. Yeah. That was a crazy time, and we could talk about that too.
Yeah. So what place did your dad's death bring you to?
Man, like a lot, like, you know, the one thing that it did for me was it made me take a lot of like risk and like kind of being like not afraid to just try things, because it was a weird thing how it happened to me. But like I had just launched my company, and so we started that in October of 2020, and 1 month into it, my fiance found out we were having a baby boy, and we were like, oh man, like I just quit my job, you know, like last month. Yeah. I don't really have an income, you know, and I got to start from ground up. And so that was like, I was like, okay, like we got to figure this out kind of thing, right? This has to work. And then the next month after that, my dad passed away. And so it was like one thing after another. And so one of them like being like a really beautiful thing that I'm super excited about, and the other one being like, oh shoot, bringing me back down to like life, you know, life happens. And it made me like, it was like two things, right? It was like a fight or flight mode where I was like, okay, obviously I was like super down, and I was like, man, like stressing out, like, is the job going to work? I'm going to be a father. I'm not really making an income. I just quit a great job that I had. Dad passed away. I wish I would have spent more time. You know, I'm so busy, like trying to like be successful in Austin. I didn't even get to like spend time in San Antonio. Yeah. Having a lot of like kind of just those thoughts, and I was like, man, like that's not going to really help me out. You know what I mean? I was kind of my own my own, like, bring myself down. And so, we just just went to war. You know what I mean? It was like one of those things where it's like, all right, like, let's day by day, let's just kind of like get better and let's just figure out this process. And so knowing I had to be like the man of the house and be there from like my sister and my mom
and your own house
and my own house. Yeah. In my own house and what I had going on with like, just, you know, becoming a father.
Yeah.
And so that made me really change my mindset on life, where it was like, life is precious, life is short, and don't be afraid to take risk.
Yeah.
Like for some reason, like I was like, man, like, not that nothing mattered, but it was more of like, whatever, like I'm gonna go all in on everything.
For sure.
Right. I'm gonna do it. I'm like I gotta like almost like fulfill like my dad's dreams of me like becoming a successful.
Yeah. That destiny, you know,
Yeah.
that he created when he came here. Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, so my next question for that is, you know, obviously this was what, 3 years ago now, almost 3 going on 4 years ago now. So you're talking from this point, and like you said, you're a man of God. And my question is, what was your faith like prior or around that time before your dad passed, and how did that kind of transition, and did you lean on that when that event took place?
Yeah, absolutely. So to be honest, like my faith had like kind of, I wasn't as strong in my faith.
Got it.
I had fallen away from the church and from reading consistently on the Bible. Being in college and then getting out of college and going into the workforce, I was like, you know, I felt like I was like almost too busy for God in a way.
For sure.
Where I lacked that. And so what's crazy is that, I don't know, it was like almost like a calling, because my dad passed away the day after Christmas, and the day before Christmas, his gift to me for Christmas was a Bible. And so, it was like, in the Bible, on this first page is like, lean on this, right? It was like, he knew I was like stressing out with like starting my own company. He knew I was like trying to figure out the ropes of my own career, becoming a man, you know, he didn't know I was going to be a father yet. I was actually going to surprise him. And so he never had to know that, but like, he knew that I had a lot of ambition to do different things. And so he always, when I would call him, his main thing he would like talk to me about was like, if I came to him with a problem, his answer was a Bible scripture. And so I would always call him, and then he would answer with a Bible scripture of like what I was going through. And so he gave me that Bible like that Christmas so that I can have that as kind of like a path to lead me.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so when I found out he passed away, I opened up my gift, you know, and it was like, that was like
what were those emotions that you got when you opened that?
It was like, it was indescribable. You know what I mean? It was almost like a sign that I was like, wow, like, this is crazy. You know, like him giving me that gift and him no longer being there. I no longer had him to guide me, but I had that to guide me.
That's right.
And so, I mean, that was everything. You know what I mean?
That moves me, man.
Yeah,
that moves me, and I think it's super important. I want you to know that it moves me.
Yeah.
And I will be surprised if that does not move anybody. But I want you to know that I know you had mentioned that, you know, you were going to surprise him. He didn't know that you were going to be a dad.
Yeah.
Right? I think that he knew a lot more than you probably knew at that point.
Right.
Because while he was your earthly father, you had a heavenly father that he knew that he was going to pass you on to.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. No, absolutely,
and I think that, you know, obviously I don't know that situation, but from my eyes, from what I'm seeing and knowing the miracles that God brings, you know, that's what that was.
Right.
It was here you go. Here's the rest of your answers.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be there for that call, but this is where you can call, and
right.
and you'll find me in here too.
Absolutely.
Which is just awesome to hear, man.
Yeah, you hit it on the nail, and it's crazy how it happened that way, and so it still guides me to this day. And I see so much of my dad in my son, just from like his mannerisms and the way he acts and stuff. And I'm like, man,
that's
like
cool, man.
It's just crazy. You know, it's a blessing. And for my friends and my family that knew my dad obviously very well, and them seeing my son now, it's like almost like a second coming. You know,
for them,
for them and for me. So it's like just super blessed. You know?
That's awesome, man. It's tough to like, even for me, it's like tough to even continue on, right? Yeah, you hear a story like that, it's just, it moves you, man.
Yeah.
And I guess my next question was, what was what was that time with your wife now, right? Like your wife was a part of that.
Yeah.
And I know you were talking about, you guys were, or your fiance just told you had a baby, right? Your dad had just passed, and you're also talking about starting your company, right? That's very successful now, but at the time, like you said, started at $0,
Right.
$0 in revenue, and then $1 in a dream is what you had.
Yeah.
Where did you, from that point on, what is it you did that you started to lean on your faith, and how did you operate that relationship with your fiance?
Absolutely. I mean, she, I don't know, we talked about this a little bit behind the scenes, but it was everything. She really pushed me to just be the man that she knew that I would be. And so there was no doubt in her mind that I was going to be successful. And she always says it to, like, I'm still trying to find success. And to this day, obviously, we're every day working at it. But in her head, and she talks about all the day, she's like, I always knew you were going to be successful whenever I saw you. And it's like, I'm like, don't lie, but no, she's like, no, I'm so serious about it, or something about it. I'm like, well, I appreciate that. And so at that time, it was like where I was like down on myself, and I'm like, oh man, like stressing out. She's like, why are you worrying? Like, it's going to be fine. Like, what you're doing. You just do it, just every day, let's just work at it. You're the one that always says that. Like at home, I talk like, oh, I'm the man. Like I can do this. I do whatever I do. I'm going to be successful at it.
Sure.
And so she started like kind of putting that back on me, where she's like,
be about it.
Yeah, be about it. You talk about it all the time, And so I was like, man, like, you're right. You know what I mean? Like, and so I have like this thing where if I tell it's almost like accountability for myself, where if I mention it to my fiance, I kind of have to do it. Okay. Whether it's like, I'm going to go and work out 5 days a week. And if I tell her that, I'm like, all right, like you got to go work out 5 times a week. And if you don't, then she's going to be like, really? Like, and so, and she's not like that at all. But in my head, I'm like, I do that to like push myself. And so that helped me out a lot, where she took a lot of the burden and the stress off of me, where she was like, look, like, you know how to do this. There's a reason why you did it, why you started your own company, because you've always talked about you wanted to have success. You wanted to have like freedom of time and spend a lot of time with us. And it's your passion, right? It's your passion of what you want to do, and you want to help. You want to change people's lives, right? And I've been blessed to like hire a lot of my friends and change their lives, and with my current company at Summit 11. And so I was like, man, you're right. And so that was like the biggest thing for me, was her pushing me to, and not even pushing me, but just giving me like that confidence in myself again that I lacked for a little bit. Yeah. And then when it came to our son, she I mean, she's a great mother. I mean, like that was a cheat code in itself for me, that allowed me to, I guess, not stress out about being a father. Obviously, I've had to learn how to be a father, and everybody learns, and as you go day by day on how to be a father. There's no like book to it, but her being a great mother took a lot of the pressure off of me, because when you start a business, there's long hours, right? It's 14-hour days sometimes, and there is no work-life balance when you do that. And I feel like anything you do that, like a lot of people talk about work-life balance and spending time with your family, and it's if you really want to be successful in something, you almost become obsessed with it, and the work-life balance is non-existent. It takes over your life, and I let it take over mine, where I was like, I really knew that I knew where I had to get to, and so I, like I said, I wanted to get there fast, and so I just worked all day, and she took care of the home, and I told her I was going to take care of like the outside.
That's
work.
awesome.
So
see, now like it's I love that we brought this up, and the relationship with your fiance, and what that dynamic looked like is post your dad passing, right? You mentioned service earlier, and it's like it's a season that I feel like everybody goes through. Anybody that's actually chasing God's word, there's seasons. There's seasons that are going to be a part of your life. Mm-hmm. And we talked about it with Caleb. Caleb was actually our first guest on our podcast.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, and I know you probably heard his story. His dad being diagnosed with cancer. Yeah. Having just a short amount of time, 7 weeks
and 7 years they turned.
7 years it turned into. Like it's crazy. So those are the seasons that you're going to go through in your life. Right. And now knowing that service is at the point of it. We talked about balance on that podcast, and the balance was like, oh, we're trying to find the balance, and he's very young. And what I've learned now, hearing you say it and things I've read and things I've seen, there is no balance. There's no balance, but where your balance comes from is within the home and who you're submitting to. So I'm going to submit to the Lord, and my wife is going to submit to myself and the Lord. But she's not going to do that willingly, right? That's going to come with knowing that that's not it. I'm not the one that has all the answers, right? I'm the one that's going to be submitting to the Lord. Now, with that being said, how can I make my home that place? How can I serve? God calls us to be a servant,
right?
You know, in that moment where you're not making a dime, you can't rub two dimes together, right? How can you serve? You're serving your wife and your family and your kid in this business. That's how you're going to serve them in that way, right? I'm found myself in a season where I'm serving my wife physically, where my wife can go out there into the world and she can get her own and actually come back and provide for the family. And I'm going to be there every step of the way because that's the season we're in. And it's the season of service is what I've understood, the season that I'm in. And it's like service isn't one-sided. It doesn't have to be just financial. You know, can you serve her heart? You know, can you serve the home? Can you do the dishes when you don't want to, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like stuff like that where it's like just how can you serve and how can you be a part of feeding her soul, feeding your partner's soul? And it's not just in the home, right? Because that's where it starts. But like, how can I sit here with you and talk and listen to you, be open and be vulnerable about talking about your pops?
Yeah.
How can I serve you in your endeavors, whether it be in Eastside Paddle Club or even the conversation we're having now?
Yeah.
That you're gonna go home now and you're just gonna be like, Haley, I love you.
Yeah.
Like, what is it you need from me this week, today? What is it you need from me right now?
Yeah.
That I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it. No questions asked, because that's how you feel like you need me to serve you in this moment. So like, that's where I've been just so thankful for my wife and, you know, my faith in God, because that was the word I got from God.
Yeah.
And it's playing directly into my life right now.
That's awesome.
And I just want to share that with the world and you know, especially, we talked about you wanting to get married and stuff like that. And, the work has been in the middle of that, right? You've been building this, which, I'm never going to tell you to stop, but I might just tell you to stop and be like, how can I serve you? And maybe this is how we're going to go about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, you hit it on the nail. It's the seasonality is of service, like you mentioned, it's something I definitely learned as well. Because when you have all this going on and you have so much pressure riding on you, it's like, all right, like everything almost seems to be like about you. Right. And so I had to learn that it's like, okay, like, yeah, like I'm like, I have a lot of stuff going on and maybe you guys are depending on me to do this. But my fiance, I mean, she has her own dreams as well. And she has a lot of ambition. And so the one thing I learned is serving her as well, like, and helping her out with everything she needed, right? Becoming a new mother is no easy task. And keeping the household together, right? And like you mentioned, doing the dishes.
No shot, man. It's not an easy job.
It's not. And so even though and it was something I definitely read up on and I had to learn a lot, just kind of learning from mentors. And I have a great mentor who's a great father and a great awesome, man of, man of God. And he's the one that actually put that in me and embedded. He's like, hey, like, maybe you're like the man of the house and everything kind of revolves around you. It may seem like, but never go home and forget that, like, that's who it revolves around. It revolves around your family. Everything is for them, right? And so
that's a mission piece, right? Like you said, like you're not the man of the house. Like you are the man of the house, but it's like who's leading that home?
Yeah,
like God's leading that home, and you're that vessel that's leading it.
Absolutely,
with your family.
Right. Absolutely. And so learning to service her as well, right? For a while she was, like maybe she wanted to be like and I don't know if she didn't want to be a stay-home mom, but she knew that she had to at that point to keep the house intact, to watch over our son. And we were in Austin still, so there wasn't like family around us to really help out. And so she did an amazing job doing all that. And so I was like, it came to a point where I was like, you know what, like I'm kind of being selfish and like me, my companies, building my companies and stuff like that. Like, what do you want to do? And what is like your goals? Because I know it's not easy taking care of our son all day, right? There's more. And so she's like, man, I really want to be like, I've always wanted to do real estate. Like she's always been intrigued with like real estate.
That's awesome.
And so she became a real estate agent, and she's just hit a year like this past month, and she's like, she loves it, and like I see in that growth in her, and she became very close to the Bible as well, and she reads every night, and we go to church, and she's like, it's awesome seeing her evolve just by like me giving up time to like just put into her, to dive into her, because she's given me so much that it's now time for me to reinvest that into her and whatever she wants to do.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, and it's like it's a seasonality of her. I learned that actually from you the first time we talked.
Yeah.
You mentioned that how you guys you've gone back and forth with your wife, where she supported you supported her.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah, we talked about that, and it stuck with me. And so I'm like, it's your season now, baby. Like it's like I'm buying into you, whatever you want to do. We were in Dallas because she was closing on a house. I
figured as much, and I was praying that was the case.
Yeah,
right? That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, so I was like, you know what? It's a long drive. I'll drive with you. I'm excited. We'll celebrate. We go to dinner and we come back, right? And so
you do what you got to do, man.
Right.
That's you pouring into her, and I'm like, man, that's a lot of driving.
Yeah.
Like it's just you lived in San Antonio, you went to Dallas, stopped here in Austin.
Yeah.
Then you're gonna go back to San Antonio and drive up here tomorrow. Like,
yeah.
You don't do that for any other reason other than you're in love.
Yeah,
and you got somebody. you got somebody to pour into. That's poured.
That's poured a lot into me. Yeah.
A lot into you.
Absolutely.
It's awesome. I've seen this so many times, and I've been so grateful for the people that reach back out to me and kind of just like you did there, tell me the impact that our conversation had. No cameras, no nothing, just you and I getting to know each other on the first time, and actually just being open and honest, having that truthful conversation. I've realized that God uses us to plant seeds, and whether you believe it or not, when you walk away from that person, that conversation, that relationship, if you planted that seed will be watered.
Yeah,
that seed will be watered, and not by you, but God's gonna pour into that person, and you get to see the works of that. Like I just got to see the works of that simply, and I'm not gonna take all the credit for that because it's not mine, right? God spoke to me, and we had that conversation. The only reason why that happened was because faith brought us together. Right. You said yes to inviting me over and us having that conversation. But like that's his works, and it's great to see that come to life. Yeah. Has there been times where you've kind of seen that play in your own life?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I feel like that, and it's sometimes you have to look back on it and be like, man, you don't really realize it at the time when it happens, but when you look back at it, you're like,
because I don't even remember. I was like, did I mention something to that?
Yeah,
and then I was like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, that helped me out a lot, and it's something I talked to my fiance about whenever I got home. I was like, man, that's like I never heard that, I never thought about that, but that's now what I'm doing for you, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to continue doing that because it matters, and it's going to, you matter to me more than anything, and so. I've seen that happen with just like even my like employees, where everything I've been like blessed to receive from my family, from God, from my mentors, I've now like kind of reinvested into them. And it's funny because it's something that like you don't really when you're chasing success, you don't all you really think about is like kind of like your success, and you're kind of selfish with your time and your knowledge and stuff like that. And you're only focused on what you're trying to do and the goal, the task ahead. But like when you get to a certain point, like success is great and the money, like that's cool. But like I think what really makes us happy is like investing that into others that can now benefit their lives.
That's right.
Whether it be from like just passing knowledge on about God or sales or business, whatever it is. But seeing that happen and me giving back to like my employees or just friends, right, best friends, and seeing them actually take it and helping it mold their lives as I'm like, that's pretty cool,
that's awesome.
And I'm not going to mention it to them. I'm not going to be like, hey man, like I'm glad I told you that.
Yeah, no, exactly. Not at all, right?
I see it from a distance.
Yeah. But it's so cool that to like, that's the whole point. Like I want people to see that it means something when you pour into somebody, when you take that time.
Yeah.
Like to point that out is so important, to be like, take the time, dude. Take the time to pour into that person. And like you said, like we're just talking about the topic of service. Yeah. Right? Like I've had so many people pour into me. I am not the man I am today without my mom, without my dad, without my brother, without, friends that I met, whether they poured into me then, and I haven't talked to them in the past 5 years or whatever, they poured into me, and that's who made me who I am today.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
know you mentioned the word mentor quite a bit, and I guess my next question was, obviously there was a lot going on during that period. And how old were you at that time?
I was 27.
27.
27.
Okay,
Yeah.
27. So
26. Yeah,
26.
26. Yeah. I was like, well, I was
26. So, obviously that your mental wasn't, at its peak,
Right.
I guess, so to speak. What did you do to, like, aside from faith, what steps did you take to did you go out and get mentors? What did you do to kind of take care of your mental during that time?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, because my mental was everywhere at that time, and the one thing that helped me out a lot was, like I mentioned, like kind of getting right with God again. What was huge for me, but at the same time, I know I mentioned my mentor. Like he was a really big component in my life at that time that helped me out helped me get through a lot. He was around the same age as my dad, and he's my partner in business right now with Summit.
You want to name him?
Spence Manthe. Yeah, his
Okay.
name's Spence Manthe, and he's the age that could be my dad. You
Okay.
know what I mean? So he kind of treats me as like a son, like a prodigal son or something. And it's funny because I work with his son, and so
Okay.
like he's there. I mean, he's a great guy, and
Cool.
his son is just like him. And but yeah, he kind of like he's like, look, I'm not your dad, but I know that like you lost your dad, and you're trying to figure out how to be a father. You're trying to figure out how to balance life and business, and I'll be here to help you. You know what I mean? And so that was huge and helped me out, just knowing that I can rely on somebody when I had questions, when I was feeling a certain way of like, just like, I don't know, kind of like just like being like hard on myself about business or hard on myself about, am I being a good father, stuff like that. And having somebody to rely on and lean on and ask those questions and be vulnerable, I'm not afraid to ask those questions and open up, helped me out a lot. And yeah, he was not afraid to just tell me the truth. He's an old school guy and very, I mean, hustle, grind,
Yeah.
work hard, take care of your family, man of the house, stuff like that. And so, yeah, it was, he instilled a lot of like good values in me that I did not know about, leading and becoming a better father and man. So
Was there a time like in there, and it's great that you got that mentor, and it's awesome to have somebody like that.
Yeah.
I have a therapist, I have, life coach, whatever you want to call it, right? I have that person, but before that place, like I know that there's bad times. Right? Was there ever times where like the enemy was really at you and at your throat, where you felt like somewhere in that process, at any point where it was like, man, I don't know if I can do this, where that fear crept in,
Yeah.
like at an
Absolutely,
incredible amount.
yeah, no, the tossing and turning at night and just not knowing like what the next step was going to be. Absolutely. Yeah. And there's things that like you can't really figure out like by just like asking people, right? You have to figure it out yourself, and you have to like grow within yourself to like overcome that.
Was there a specific
so-
moment that you kind of can look back at now and be like, man, dude, that was rough?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That time period when we first started and my dad passed away and all that was very rough like
Okay.
that. And so, I took a lot of time to just, I started reading a lot. Reading a lot. I read Tim Grover, like Relentless and Winning. He wrote 2 books. And then I also read like David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah, I read that too,
and,
dude, recently.
And to be honest, like I read like that. And then I read Joe Dispenza books on just kind of like law of attraction and stuff like that, because I knew I knew what I wanted, and I was going through a hard time, but it was like, man, like I can't seem to get myself out of this like hump into like where I can like go to work and be like at my full 100% like self
Yeah.
to accomplish what I want to. I just feel like I'm like dragging my feet. And so, yeah, I started reading into like those self-help books and learning like just from the like those guys on like how they help, how they create like, their mental process that they have now. Yeah. And it was like, all right, like it almost made me like hardened in a way where I was like, okay, this happened. Life is going to happen. There's peaks and valleys in life as always. And when you're down, eventually it's going to come up. And when you're up, things are going to happen. Right. You're going to be down again. It's the seasonality of life. And so I was like, man, like, okay, I can get out of this. I can get out of this myself. Right. And so That helped me out a lot. And then also I started to take time to really focus on my home life and just spending time with my sons and my family. Like, to a kid, nothing matters, right? They're just happy to like be around you. They're joyful. There's no wrong, right? There's sometimes I would look at my son, I'm like, man, sleep's so peaceful. I wish I could sleep like that. Because I couldn't, I was so stressed out and stuff. But doing those things, man, it changed my mindset on how to just accept like stress and fear and use it as a tool to go and, because you can do two things, right? You can let it crumble you, or you can use it as a tool to become better and navigate life, and almost like harden yourself to not be afraid of it.
Yeah.
And so
that's awesome, dude. I honestly, like, when I hear stuff like that, it's just like the enemy that's trying to get you, man. And that's that opposite side. It's the opposite side that doesn't want you to have what's right on the other side of that fear. Right. Because it's right on the other side of that fear.
Yeah, it is.
Everything you ever want is right on that other side. So
sometimes it's your own like self.
Exactly.
It's
your own
most
fear.
of the time it's your own fear.
It's your own fear. Yeah.
It's a little voice in the back of your head.
Yeah, dude. I am like the biggest Russ fan. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a rapper.
Wasn't it?
Russ.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. He is like, honestly, one of my favorite artists of all time.
Yeah.
He's such a lyricist. He reminds me of the old school guys, the 90s rap.
Yeah.
I think we gotten away from that. The new rap is definitely different,
Yeah.
But he's a lyricist, and he has a song out right now. It's put In the Dirt, and it's my anthem. It is literally my anthem, and it's just, I'm about to go to Belize on this mission trip, and I'm going to go serve these kids, and, the enemy's all around him. But he's like, I'm not going to let the devil win. Nah, never. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to let the devil in. Nah, never. Fear and worry is the devil at work on God. I'm going to put him in the dirt, in the dirt, in the dirt.
Love that.
That is what the enemy is, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's fear and worry is like him putting in work in you, and it's he's telling you what you got to do with it. You know? Like you're just I'm never gonna let the devil win, nor am I gonna let him in.
Absolutely.
And there's gonna be times where he's gonna be knocking at my door, but like for the people that are out there in that spot, maybe you just lost a parent, you lost a friend, you lost a spouse. Like those things are painful, and like you said, it's just life.
Yeah,
that could happen right now.
Yeah,
to any
absolutely.
of us,
to any of us, anytime.
To any of us, and it's just like to understand, like, the enemy's always going to be there, and that doesn't mean that that's your end point. Like you have a destiny beyond that.
Yeah,
there's something beyond that.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, it's gonna happen no matter what. Life happens, and experiences and obstacles are gonna happen no matter what. It's how you overcome them, right? Like, and I know it's like it's very cliche, but it is real. Like when things happen, it's like I mentioned, it's a two-way street. You can go and let it happen to you and kind of be victim to it, or you can use it as I like to say, like as coal burning inside of me, like where I use like failure and fear as like something that like burns inside of me to even go like even harder.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I've like with everything I do nowadays, where I had to learn this tool, but like taking like fear and anxiety and things that I did not, that happened to me, and using that to like catapult to like my next step, right? And becoming a better person because of it, and getting to that next level.
That's awesome, man. Well, I mean, it's crazy to think about like how that progressed, right? We talked about your dad, coming from Mexico, your mom being here in San Antonio.
Yeah.
That relationship, what it was like. You had a beautiful home, loving home, strict home, right? That kind of made you who you are today. You had a great relationship with your sister that dwindled at one point, but now it's thriving. It sounds like,
absolutely,
her as a tia now, like like living in that moment with you. Without your dad, but like now knowing, since he's passed, he's been guiding you this whole way, right? Him giving you that Bible, it's amazing to see how the fruits of your labor has paid off, and the fruits of your dad's labor has paid off as well,
right?
And how it's all been provision that God's provided for you, in your family. So it's awesome, man. Like I think that if anybody ever has anything in front of them, anything that is stopping them from getting where they want to be, there's two places you can turn. Turn to a mentor, right?
Yeah.
Find somebody that is gonna to lead you in the right direction, and then another place is the Word. It's a great place to turn.
Absolutely.
Those are the places that you turned. Those are the places that I turned, and I think a lot of other people have have turned in those directions.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions for you right before we wrap up.
Absolutely.
3 songs that are gonna be the playlist to your life, to this season of your life.
I would say, man, like, so this is big. It's funny because like every morning I have this thing where I listen to like the same songs because it just gets me ready for the day.
Okay.
And I always like kind of feel like that's like my life. You know what I mean? Where I actually I picture myself.
Yeah. Okay.
And so like Nipsey, Grinding on My Life.
There you go.
That's
Nice
a good
song.
one right there, man.
I was in California when he passed,
Oh, really?
and it was like you would have thought like just the president died or something like
Yeah.
that. It was just insane how beautiful, like how much love that state had for them, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, I wasn't like always like super close to his music. It wasn't until like I ran across that song and I was like, this is a good song. And I started listening to a lot of his other songs and I was like, man, I love like his, just what he would say, like the lyrics he had, like he's a lyricist as well.
Yep.
And I was like, all right. And so like, I love like Nipsey's songs. And
That's awesome.
now that he's passed, I feel like that's like, I didn't really listen to him when he was like alive.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but Grinding on My Life, Nipsey, and then 50 Cent, I'm the Man.
Yeah,
I feel like that
that's right.
song, man, like sometimes you just gotta like listen to a song and be like, you know, I'm the man.
Dude,
you know
that's
what I mean?
right, dude.
Like,
That's
yeah.
right, dude. I had a season where that was my song,
Yeah.
too, and I think you
really?
might have just brought it back to me. You might have just brought it back to me because I think like now that I think back to it, like you said, it's season, right?
Right.
My wife and I are experiencing that now, where we're switching roles and we're adapting, and that's where we're at. And like that song, I remember that was like when I was coming back into that season. So thanks for that.
Yeah,
thanks
it's a
for
great
reminding me.
song, you know. And sometimes you just need that little push from like a good song like
That's
that.
right.
And it's like reminds you
50's
who
a
you
good-
are.
50's a good way to start.
It gets you going, man. And then Buy Dirt by it's a country song.
Yeah.
Buy Dirt by Luke Bryan.
There you go.
And that one is because like it's funny. I nowadays like I'm always listening. Like I love to like have conversations with like older guys who have like been through life, right? Like 70-year-olds, 60-year-olds. And my fiance's stepdad, you know, his name's Fred, and he's a super country guy. Lives out in the country, and he's just like one of those like country guys that has a lot of knowledge and been through a lot of life. And he's successful in his own ways. And so like sometimes just sitting with him, he's like, oh man, like he's super simple. And I'm like, man, yeah, life's pretty simple. And you live a good life when you can keep it simple, right? And it's like Buy Dirt talks about like starting a family, staying close to God, you know, real estate, buying a house, and just kind of building your roots into that house. And so it's funny because like that song came out when I was talking to him one time, and I was like, man, this is like I'm living this right now with him and him giving me knowledge. And so yeah, those 3 I feel like are my life.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. And that was a question I had for you as well. Is like, is that relationship with her parents pretty good? Like, does she have both of her parents?
So she has her mother and her stepdad.
Okay,
her stepdad is who like who like raised her, you know, and so that's like her real dad.
That's awesome.
And yeah, she has a great family. Her family lives out on a ranch, and we go out there, and my son goes and plays with like cows and horses.
That's awesome, man.
And he loves it. He loves animals and stuff.
Great.
So,
That's great. So, all right, last question here. Tell me a little bit more about it. Please elaborate.
Yep.
What would you name the title of this season of life?
Grit. I think I would name the title of this season of life like Grit, because everything, I mean, man, it's taking grit to right now, like run 2 companies right now and successful, you know, hopefully successful at them. And so, you know, waking up and throughout the day, every day, it's like managing 2 things, right? Balancing, trying to make both companies successful. And so, you know, like coming home and ending one job from like 7 to 5 and coming home and starting the other one from 5 to 10. It's like grit, you know, it takes a lot of work. And then I was actually talking to my fiance about it yesterday, where I was like, sometimes I get those little weak moments where I'm like, man, like I'm tired, you know, like this is tough, you know? And so she's like, oh, like you got it. And then like I mentioned this thing, I always mention something like quotes, and then she'll like throw it back at me. She's like, remember when you said this? And so one of them was like, don't complain about how full your plate is when you ask to eat, you know?
That's right.
And I was like, man, like, you know, you got me speechless, right? Yeah, you're right.
That's right.
And so that was you know, it takes grit to just do 2 startups, right? And in the ESBC is everything's going great, but there's always like minor details
Sure.
that I'm like, that I can be better at that, or I can do that better. Waking up every day, like the first thought in my head is like, how can I create more value for these, for ESPC? How can I give the members more, and to where they're like, where they love the space, where like there's no doubts in their head that there's a competitor out there that might be better, right? Like I want to create a community where everybody's so happy. And so like, that's my thought process every day. And it takes work to figure out all those minor details, because I mean, I never thought, when I started these companies, I thought it was easy. You slap some, you open up a building, you slap some courts down, and it'll come, right? There's that saying, if you build it, it'll come.
Yep.
But man, there's so many details. There's minor details that you don't even think about, and it is definitely not as easy as I imagined it would be. And it's taken a lot of patience and grit.
I think that's a perfect description. Right? Yeah. So I think a lot of people at home will understand, that season of life you're in. Yeah. And hopefully when they get to see you, right, they see you in action, right?
Yeah.
At those places doing those things. So we're coming to the end of the podcast, and I know that, we talked about a lot of things, of all things of who you are. Your dad, him and the impact he's had on you has been substantial. What would you say to him? What would you say to him today?
I would say to him, like, I'm doing it. Because I mean, we talked a lot about, I mean, I was in college, and college was tough for me too. Just going through college, I was never really like super focused into college. I kind of just went just because I felt like you had to go to college. And if you wanted to be successful, you had to go to college, which in today's world, it's not necessarily true. There's different avenues that you can take to find success without college. And I think college is great. And it gives you the tools to start, but I don't think it's absolutely by all means, like super necessary for to be 100% successful. But when I was in college, he, I mean, like I'm saying, like I would call him all the time, and be like, man, this is tough. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna pass this class, like studying. I was working throughout school and stuff like that. And he's like, man, like you got it. Like you talk about you want to do this, and you want to start a business, and you want to be a businessman, and like you got to go through this rough patch to get to that. Right. And so, even working at my other companies, like I've always leaned on him for that kind of that wisdom. And so, now that I'm actually doing it with two companies, I would just tell him, like, man, like I'm doing it, like everything we talked about, like I'm doing it. And we may not be at the finish line or like maybe even in the middle of the race, but at least we're running awesome. This race. And so it's like, it's just going to stay steady, stay consistent. And we're going to, eventually all the hard work and the long nights and stuff will pay off. Right. Awesome, I have no doubt about that. I think if you do something, if you find success in something and you do it every day, and eventually that, the benefit of will come, the fruits of your labor.
So like, that's what you would say to him, I'm doing it, Dad, I'm doing it. I'm running this race. Now, that's the race you were running. Those are the things you talked to him about before he passed, about you starting your business, because that was around the same time. Now, if you were to put yourself in your dad's shoes, what would he say to you after you tell him, I'm doing it, I'm running this race?
Man, he would. That's a good question. I think with him, he would probably say, probably like slow down, and like I said, right now I'm in a season of trying to slow down and soak in all of like the good I have in my life, right? Having gratitude for everything. So he'd probably tell me, like, slow down and focus on just soaking it all in, right? It's gonna come, right? It's already written, in the Bible, it's already written. God already has it written. Right. He already has it set out for me. And so it's like, if you know that it's already written, why don't you just kind of enjoy what you have now? Enjoy it. It's gonna come. Keep doing what you're doing, but don't be so hard on yourself, because I have that. I'm super hard on myself, and I'm never content, And so I think that would be the one thing, would be like, slow down, enjoy what you have in front of you right now, soak it all in, and it's gonna come. It's already written. Awesome, so that's something I try to remind myself.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad, and I wanted to ask that question because I think he's got an enormous amount of love for you right now. Because I'm, as just a colleague, as a friend, as a brother in Christ, I am beyond proud of you. and everything that you've accomplished.
I appreciate that.
And you gotta know that, and you gotta take that with you. And not that it's coming from me, but these are words that are given to me by a power much higher than I am.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I am beyond proud of you, and I think anybody would be.
Yeah, you as well.
Thanks, man.
You as well, man. I mean, everything you guys are doing is great. The DNA podcast is awesome, and listening to some of the other stories, I was like, man, that's super awesome. I love hearing stories like that, which goes from behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
What's really gotten us to like be who we are now today,
That's
and
right,
what shaped us and molded us to be the men we are. So
it's awesome, dude.
that is something I was super intrigued about, and that's why I was
you.
like excited to like talk to you and continue to grow a relationship with you and your wife and your brother. You guys are good people, and
Thanks,
so
man.
thanks for like having me.
Of course, man. No, we're gonna set up dinner.
Yeah.
We're gonna have time to soak all this in, man, because you got a big heart, man, and you got a great family and great roots, and I just can't be thankful enough that God put us in the same path together, same atmosphere. That's the end of the podcast, man. You did a great job. Thanks so much for jumping on. Like I said, you can catch us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast. That's where you can find us. Adrian, if you can plug everything you do, socials, all that stuff, that would be great. Just so we can send everybody your way. I know South by Southwest is this week. You are having an event there.
We are.
We're gonna try to get this out as soon as we can.
Yep.
But nonetheless, like we're gonna post on the story and let everybody know about the big event you guys got coming up.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We just want to support you in any way we can. So plug
Appreciate
all that, man.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can follow me and follow our business page at Eastside Paddle Club on Instagram. We just launched our TikTok. It's Eastside Paddle Club as well. My personal is at the Montoya with 2 A's, Montoyaa. And I appreciate you guys having me today. We do have a South by Southwest event tomorrow with the Texas Ranchers, the pro pickleball team. And
awesome.
We're going to have the panel is going to be amazing. It's going to be a panel with a lot of NFL guys on there talking about mental health and the athletic world, talking about growing a business from startups and stuff like that. Jeremy Hill, who owns a collective, will be on there as well. And so it'll be awesome. It's going to be an awesome event. And it's all day from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Food, free drinks, great connections, and socializing with some great people. So
awesome, man.
Hope to see you guys there. And thank you, man.
Congratulations, dude.
You will never cease to be beside me. Constant, not dependent on what I see. And I can always trust you know what I need. And now I know that I can trust you rightly. And you came through the sky like